Ever heard the term house poor? This is an example of a home, lovely home, good size. The problem is that it needs repair everywhere. Needs new flooring, needs new carpet, needs a new roof, needs new siding. This is what I would call the owner was probably house poor. It means that yes, they could afford their mortgage. Yes, they live in a lovely neighborhood, but they couldn't afford to maintain it. So as much as we talk about home ownership and how great it is, you need to make sure that you purchase a home that you can afford to maintain it. So even if your lender is giving you 300,000, you might go 250, 275 just so that you can afford to maintain the home. I know that's a tough call, but being house poor doesn't allow you to maintain the home, and when you go to sell it, you're not going to get the price you want because it hasn't been maintained. So
My friends, so listen, we're going to talk about being house poor and why this is not going to only be a major problem in today's economy, but it's going to get significantly worse where people are going to be losing their homes because of job loss and because of the massive increase in the cost of living. So, welcome to a lesson today on being house poor. Now, house poor isn't just necessarily being able to maintain the house. It goes a lot further than that. And so, my friends, hey, it's going to be a hard one, but we're going to be talking about this issue in this segment of Let's Talk Money.
Let's talk money. Let's talk money. Let's talk money. With the older man, he's got the wisdom, honey. Remember, whenever you're in doubt, always ask an older man, he'll show you the right route. Oh, the wisdom of the elders is gold. They seen it all, they've been through the highs and the lows. So let's talk money. Let's talk money.
Yes. This is another lesson from the older man. I have sold real estate for over 16 years in the Cayman Islands before I moved here to Dubai. I did extremely well at it. I had risen to that status, where you're selling the multi-million-dollar homes. And of course, it was incredibly lucrative in an environment where, there's no taxation, right? Now, there was another area that I actually excelled in, being an ex-banker early in my days, is that I got to deal with a lot of foreclosed properties. And like I mentioned in previous videos, a year back or so, when I did speak about this subject, there is nothing more disheartening than actually having to come into a person's house, especially looking at the faces of the kids and having to tell them they got to move out because I got a buyer for the house. And then looking at the homeowner's face because they're not my client. The bank is. And usually at this point, it really hits them that they have no control over the house or the price that they're going to get for it. Because the bank wants to get their money back. They're not really concerned about the homeowner. They don't care if you're not going to get the price you want. And the problem with that is usually when the buyer sees that the house is being foreclosed on, they're not going to give you fair market value. They're usually vultures. The buyer is usually looking for a deal that is below market value. And add to that, usually the house is not in the most pristine state, simply because if the homeowner had a problem paying for the mortgage, more than likely he had a problem maintaining the house. So any prospective buyers are going to nitpick the hell out of the house and all the little problems, and he's going to lowball the crap out of the bank to get this house. So these are the problems that we see with being homeowners. And as a lot of women have gone into overextending themselves into buying these homes to prove that they are the bosses and, more black women are buying homes, we now starting to see the serious problems of being a homeowner. That, my friend, is one of the reasons why you have to understand that a house that you live in is not a freaking asset. It is a liability. And I've been preaching this lesson to you from the time I started this channel.
Being house poor is a legit contradiction because on the one hand, you own, quote unquote, the asset, but even that might not be true. You have to understand a lot of people owe money on their home. They owe money to the government, they owe money to the bank, they owe money. Like the home isn't something they truly own because so much of it is ongoing costs and so much of it is debt servicing the debt on the home. And it's also something that is very challenging because most people who are house poor are literally living in the so-called asset. So how can you call it an asset, a true asset, if you're living and using it and you're unable to generate really any income from it at all? So it's not truly an income generating asset. You can argue that it's appreciating, but the appreciation is kind of covering all of the costs that I just talked about. So that's why, yes, it is a contradiction, but it is how it is. So a lot of people own a home, they owe so much continual money on it that it cuts into the rest of their lifestyle. So because they have to service this massive responsibility that is their primary home, they don't have money to go on vacations anymore. They don't have money to go do X, Y, and Z anymore. And that's why they feel poor. Is even though they have a roof over their heads, they genuinely have less money to spend because their house is sucking up so much of their money. That's what it means.
Oh, she said it so well. So freaking well. I love how she said, quote unquote, asset, because it isn't an asset. So most of you women just don't realize what you have done. And I'm talking to men as well. It's just that the idea and this whole trend that was a huge thing earlier in the year and last year. This idea that more single women had owned or bought more homes in America than men did. And, the women were out there celebrating about their boss bee status. For some reason, I don't understand this whole boasting that they're better than men. Once again, buying more homes than men, and they're stepping up. You remember those news reports? I'll play one here.
Trend in the housing market, more single women are becoming the buyers, and it's a trend experts don't expect to change. Jennifer Bellamy is looking into the numbers. Jennifer, curious to see the breakdown here in Georgia.
Yeah, the National Association of Realtors says single women made up almost 20% of home purchases last year, and that number is only going to grow. Women doing it on their own, refusing to wait on a partner to turn a house into a home they own. LendingTree found that single women own more homes than single men in America's 50 largest metro areas, and that includes Atlanta. Across the country, the report found single women own about 5.1 million homes compared to 3.5 million owned by single men. In Atlanta, that gender gap amounts to about 3.7%. Countless studies have found women focusing more on their careers and waiting to get married and have children. But that's not stopping them from taking on the investment of a home. Some of the single women homeowners do come from divorces in which the woman retains the family home, but analysts say that's only part of the trend. They believe it's more tied to the rise of women in the workforce. The most recent Bureau of Labor Statistics report showed women just slightly outnumbered men in the workforce, about 50.04% in December. So despite the fact that the pay gap still favors men, when it comes to putting down roots, it's the single ladies that are increasingly making themselves at home at places they alone own. Another factor for you, research has shown women are more risk averse than men, and some believe that plays into why there are more single women homeowners than men. Analysts also say women tend to be more conservative, which means they're less likely to purchase homes they can't afford, also when compared to men.
Now, a lot of these women are not only losing their jobs, but now realize that being house poor is a real freaking thing. And they've taken out these 30-year mortgages, not realizing that whatever payment that they're making in the first 7 to 10 years, the large majority, I'm talking about 80% of that payment, is being paid to interest, not on the principal of that mortgage. So the bank wants their cut up front. So just imagine you've paid your mortgage payment for 10 years, and then what happens? You move, because most people usually move location anywhere between 7 to 10 years. So you sell that house in 7 to 10 years thinking that you've actually paid a lot off on the mortgage. Come to realize the majority of that money went to the freaking interest, not to the principal that you thought you were bringing down. So in the end, you realize that you are in a net loss when it comes to purchasing a home, usually in the short term. And there's a caveat to that because real estate prices now swing so hard that you don't even see it over the long term as much as you did. Simply because the maintenance costs on the house, the taxation on the house, the insurance on the house, the homeowners association fees on the house are freaking going up every single year. And the average appreciation rate is usually around 4% per year on homes. Yet, all of those costs I just mentioned to you usually excels more than 4%. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. It's very difficult to come out profitable when you sell a home these days that you are actually living in, that you're living in. I'm not talking about homes that you've bought for investments that you are renting. That's a totally different story. I'm talking about just living in your home.
I bought a house when I was 26 and fell immediately into poverty. Okay, when I lived with my parents, I was living my best luxury lifestyle. I went to South Korea, bought a 2000 plane ticket, didn't even blink twice. I went shopping, luxury goods, all that. Was traveling, was just, I was living it up. I felt rich. I had no bills. And I had a full-time 9-to-5 job. I was working as a nurse, okay? I was killing it. I bought my own house. That first mortgage payment came in and I was like, oh, this is a situation. But at first you think you can handle it, right? Like, what's a couple thou? What's a couple thou? I got it. But then the pipes in my 80-year-old home broke immediately as soon as I bought the house. Wiped out my savings. Then another pipe in a different area of the house broke. Okay, I'm struggling. Okay, I need help. Then my neighbor's pipe, it was a twin house, her pipe broke. And she didn't believe that her pipe broke, but her pipe broke on my side of the house. So all of that water that was coming down was spraying into my home. And then my water heater broke. When I tell y'all, I went from living in the lap of luxury to destitute immediately. Now, don't get me to fooling y'all, because it was worth it in the long run, because that house is now worth like 2 times what it was worth then. So I'm actually doing pretty good. But at the time, when I tell you I was struggling, I had to go to my parents every other day for dinner because your girl could not feed her.
Yeah, she's probably lying. The house is worth twice as much. There is no way that she could be this young and an 80-year-old house has appreciated 100% in her lifetime. Nah, she's bullshitting. The only way that's possible is if they rezoned and the home in that area went from being residential to being commercial, something to that respect. But don't let these freaking stories about, now it's worth twice as much. Don't let that fool you, because these are the things that make people make stupid decisions when it comes to home ownership. If you just go to ChatGPT and just ask it, what is the average rate of appreciation of a home in your state or in your area, you will get a good idea on what that is, and then you can make a judgment call from that. But just to go back on this young lady's story, all of this so-called high-ticket traveling that she was doing, this luxury life, if she had a parent or father that could simply say to her, listen, honey, I know you're going to want to buy a house. Don't spend big money on traveling and all of that stupidness. Go economy, fly frugal, be frugal, put some of that money away into an investment account and you'll be okay. But she spent a lot of the down payment she should have been saving for on this house. Women still want to do that traveling and luxury, and if they have the money, they're going to spend it. They don't see the future, my friends.
And everybody doesn't want to be a homeowner, and everybody won't be a homeowner. Let's talk about it. They said 68% of adults go and buy a home because they were encouraged to, not because they understood why or why not to. Of that 68% of adults who go and rush and buy a home just because that's what society tells us to do, 32% regret buying that home within the first 5 years of living in that home. See, because I fear that idea has a lot more to do with the idea of playing home than it does on the actual value of owning your own home. Owning your own loan. Which is why we have a lot of young adults unmarried playing house but in an apartment. Okay, that wasn't part of my script, but
Stop making people feel bad for not rushing into buying a home because they haven't decided where they want to settle down, and they're not even sure that they want to wake up one day and realize that they are house poor because of the reality of what it means to quote unquote own your own home in 2025. Don't catch up, catch on, and that's how you'll have a better financial life in the future.
It blows my mind how she could use the term, people are trying to convince you. It's not no people. It's other women who are trying to make other women do some dumb shit that they've already done. Men ain't freaking out there rushing to buy homes. Men are looking at other investments, how to build business. They don't mind not having a house. Because the only way that you're going to freaking want a house is if you're ready to create a family. Men buy houses so that they can put a family in there. Until then, he knows that it's better to actually rent an apartment and take that extra money and invest it. Stock market, building a little business on the side, something different, but not buying a house. Now, I love how this woman breaks it down for you. Just have a good listen, because I've done this exercise many times.
Because it's kind of a crazy concept. For me, I'm in my 30s. I don't own a home. A lot of people are like, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to buy a house? I just don't necessarily think that buying a home is the best investment. If you're buying a house to make this an investment property, sure, it's an investment. But if you're buying a house and you're paying a 30-year mortgage, as someone in my 30s who doesn't own a home, let me tell you that it's like one of the number one questions I get. I also travel full time. I spend less than probably like $2,000 a month, including rent. And I've always joked that I think home ownership is like a pyramid scheme. But I want to show you the numbers I crunched. For this hypothetical situation that I drew up, I'm just going to say that the house is worth $300,000, putting 20% down, that's $60,000. I also think that these numbers are pretty generous because interest rates are insane and I haven't seen a house worth less than $300K anywhere. We are getting a loan worth $240,000, 30 years is 360 months, 4% interest rate. Our monthly payments just comes out to $1,144. This is where it gets crazy. After 5 years, the amount that you still owe on the loan is $247,000. Showing you this because I don't think a lot of people understand how these interest payments work, but for the most part, the green line is your interest. This is your principal. You do not start paying most of your principal off until the end of your loan. After 5 years, the amount you still owe on that loan is $247,000. The amount that you've paid after 5 years is $68,000. 30 years, the amount that you pay in interest is $288,000. Bring your total amount to $528,000 that you've paid if you stay in your house for 30 years. To assume that most people, maybe you're gonna flip a house. Maybe you're gonna stay there 5 years. Let's break it down. I took $60,000 and invested that, got an average 8% return annually. Instead of that monthly loan payment, I put that exact same amount into an investment fund for 5 years. I laid it out in 5 years and 30 years so we get the same thing. Putting that $60,000 into an account, investing $1,144 monthly for 5 years. At the end of those 5 years, we have $168,000. Put that $60,000 in there and not touch it. Cool. In 5 years, we now have $88,000 from not touching it. And if we want to talk about the return on 30 years, instead of paying for a fixed mortgage, at the end of 30 years, no initial payment, put that $60,000 in there, don't touch it, leave it for 30 years. We have $603,000. Take that same $60,000, invest $1,100 a month for 30 years. We have $2.1 million. So I'm just curious, what do you think is best? I read this today and we need to talk about it because it's kind of a crazy concept. For me,
She just laid it out. She just laid it out nicely. A lot of people just don't understand it because we have a society that just bullshits the crap out of us on a daily basis, and we all just think that we gotta follow the status quo. A lot of women are feeling the pain now.
A lot of people think that if you can afford a house that's X number of dollars, you're good to go. What most people don't realize is the upkeep and the total cost to own is what kills you on real estate. Let's say that you can afford a $300,000 house. You need to keep in mind, you've still got to have gas, electric, water. You've got to keep up the yard. You've also got capital improvements, and you can be assured that you're probably going to spend somewhere between 1% and 5% per year on capital improvements. So if you're in a $300,000 house, you need to have between $3,000 and $15,000 a year that you're going to spend on capital improvements. HVAC, roof, plumbing. And the thing about it is if you don't calculate that in your budget, you become house poor. Nobody wants to be house poor because your house gets run down, the value of it starts to depreciate if you're not investing in your house. So don't think that the purchase price is...
This is the problem that a lot of women don't see.
Serious question. Who is homeownership for? Because the more I hear about it, the more it's not it. I just got done with a conversation with a family member who mentioned that their house went up in value, which is not a good thing because now their taxes on their home is equating to $833 a month. Keep in mind, this family member has paid off their home. They have done their due diligence. They have worked their butt off. Their mortgage is gone. They don't have a mortgage. And they are still owing the government $833 a month. Or guess what? The government can take their home. So home ownership to me is just sounding like fancy rent because you're indefinitely paying literally rent, $833 a month just to keep your property. That does not make me want to work hard to buy a home. That sounds like a literal scam. I'd rather give my money to a landlord and have a lot less headaches than give my money to the government for the same reason.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that when you actually go and buy a home that you're living in, your first landlord is the bank. You think that you've just got out of working for a landlord. No, now your first landlord is the bank and your second landlord is the government. And the government never goes away. First landlord, you might get rid of him in anywhere between 15 and 30 years. That's the bank. Second landlord never, ever, ever goes away. And as the property value goes up, you got to be, like she said, you got to pay those fees, man.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but being a homeowner is not it. Being a homeowner does not determine your success. It's not the American dream, whatever the fuck that is. It ain't the picket fence that we've been sold all our lives, you know? It's a lie fabricated by the banks, in my opinion, to fill their pockets even more.
It's not just your opinion, young lady. You're just waking up to some realities that a lot of us understood from a long time ago. But the dream is still there. That sentiment is still there for a lot of people because they've never been told otherwise. They've never listened to the people who have been there before them. Older individuals. Now they're getting scammed the same way that their ancestors got scammed. The major difference between the ancestors and you is that the cost to you is significantly higher than it was to your ancestors, to your grandparents. And what should have happened if your grandparents stayed together, the mother didn't leave the husband and the house was sold off, etc. What would have happened was that generational wealth that had accumulated would have then been passed on to you or your parents as a child. And then your parents did the same thing. They stayed in the house, and then that house would have been passed on to you. So wealth would have been generated and stayed within the family, but that didn't happen, did it? No, because somewhere along the line, Mama decided she wanted to go back out on the streets. Now, maybe I'm being a little facetious, and that's not really fair. But that point is still a major part of why we want to buy a house and then being able to pass it on to the next generation. But unfortunately, that's not the way the world works these days. Number one, most people are more transient than our ancestors. The ease of travel makes it easier for people to move to different states, move because of work, move because they want to travel and have fun. And they will sell that property because the property is an anchor. And the thing is, these are usually Western issues. Properties in rural areas of most Asian countries are so bloody cheap. You can literally just buy it on a whim, by saving for a couple of years. But in most Western countries, man, you're paying out of the wazoo. Let's hear what else she says about it being a scam.
Because when you're renting a house or an apartment, you're not paying escrow. You're not paying for taxes and insurance. You're not paying for HOA.
Here we go again with the whole being a homeowner is a scam. Y'all love to do this. And I posted in her comment section, I said, well, if it's a scam, sell your house. Y'all give advice like this to other people and say, hey, don't do this. You're doing the very thing that you're preaching to people not to do. And then when I said sell the house, you come up with an excuse as to why you don't want to or can't. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Our first house, we lived in it for almost 6 years. When we sold that house, we made $100,000 profit.
I don't understand how you could make $100,000 on a house in 6 years when the large majority of the mortgage payment was going towards the interest on the property. Either you bought that house well below market, you didn't have to put in any work for it to be back up to scratch, but to say you made $100,000, that's excluding your down payment. Remember, that has to exclude the down payment you made on the house initially. You better tell me that you made, that would be great profit. But hey, let's hear what else you have to say.
So they had to cut us a check when we sold it. But when you rent an apartment or you rent a house, when you move out and get that security deposit back, the most you're getting is what, $1,000 to $3,000 at most. That's if the landlord doesn't try to screw you over and find things that are wrong with the house or the apartment and nitpick you and deduct. Y'all sound so simple when y'all say this. And it does not make sense because a lot of times the people that are saying it's a scam have mortgages. It's not like you live in an apartment or a house and saying, oh my God, I feel so much more relieved because I do live in an apartment or I rent this house. Every one of y'all that say this nonsense are buying your home, AKA you have a mortgage.
The brother never made any sense. Reality of it is simply this. When someone rents a piece of property, most of the time they're looking for you to pay off most of the expenses that he's going to acquire on holding on to that asset. What he's doing, he's hoping that he could rent that property for as long as he can while paying back the bank, keeping his expenses as low as possible. Minor repairs, you have to pay for it. Big repairs, he has to pay for it. But in the long run, landlords are hoping that the cost of the rent that he's charging would get rid of most of the interest payment on the house, and then he can start to use that asset, because it's an asset. It's money's coming in from the property. He's not living in it. That asset, he can then use the equity built into that asset to buy another asset. So all of these assets are being paid off from renters who are actually paying below what his cost is. Because what he's doing, he's making one property build on the next. Of course, that's a simplified version, but I'm trying to get across to you that the property is only an asset if someone else is paying for it. It's not an asset when you, as the homeowner, is living in it and paying all the cost or the expenses of that house. Okay, let's hear one more person.
You are not buying a house. You are buying the right to live in a house and pay the bank. So people need to stop saying, oh, I bought a house, I own my house. You can't, no. You don't own anything someone can take from you, and you did not buy the house. The only time you can say you own your home is if you have no mortgage. Even then you don't own it, because if you don't pay property taxes, they can still take it from you.
I just think the brother just said it cold, hard, and to the point. We're going to end on that note. Don't be house poor, my friends. If you're going to buy a house, please take into consideration that the maintenance, the insurance, the mortgage payments, the homeowner's insurance fees, all of these things add up, and you're tied to that location. Please understand how it works before you jump into it, okay? That's just my advice from an older man. So, my friends, until tomorrow, remember, whenever in doubt, always ask an older man. I'll see you soon. Cheers.